Welcome to the LinkedIn Famous Podcast, the show where we get real about what it takes to build a personal brand on LinkedIn that gets real business results. We're talking about driving revenue from a personal LinkedIn profile by sharing real and authentic stories and points of view. I am Brad Zomick, your host and the founder of Spectrumer, a personal brand consultancy that helps founders and executives get LinkedIn famous. Join me for unfiltered conversations from the trenches of LinkedIn. We'll meet CEOs, go-to-market executives, subject matter experts, and company employees with blockbuster LinkedIn results. We'll unpack strategy and leave you with tactical advice to grow your personal brand and demand for your company's products and services. All right, LinkedIn hustlers, it's time to level up. Welcome, LinkedIn movers and makers. All guests on this podcast are special guests, but today we have a legend in B2B marketing and one of the most prolific creators on LinkedIn. He is one of the first people, if not the first in B2B marketing, to go all in on LinkedIn because it was happening in sales first. He was LinkedIn famous before the most recent crop of LinkedIn famous executives coming out of the pandemic. We're talking about Chris Walker, Adam Robinson. Dave is the CEO of the most popular community for learning B2B marketing. It's called Exit 5, but he had a modest beginning starting as an associate at a PR firm. He started to make a name for himself in podcasting when no one knew or cared about podcasts. It was called Tech in Boston. That landed him a job at HubSpot, where he ran the first podcast program. It's also where he met Dave Cancel and Elias Torres, the co-founders of Drift. He joined Drift as the first marketer and rose to chief marketing officer. He put on a masterclass in category creation and brand building there. Drift went from an unknown to the hottest B2B go-to-market software for a time. While he was there, he also wrote a couple of books, This Won't Scale and Conversational Marketing. After 4 years, he moved on to Privy, where he held the CMO role for a couple of years. He helped that company get acquired by Attentive. After that, he started this rinky-dink Patreon group that grew into a weed that was first DGMG, this marketing community, and now Exit 5. I think I still get bills from the Patreon group. Exit 5 now has 5,000 members around the world. He has a team of 6 employees. It's like a LinkedIn just for marketers, except people aren't posting to drive engagement and pipeline. They're there to learn from each other and the experts that Dave brings in. It's also a media company with a newsletter, a podcast, live events, and webinars. I personally have learned so much there over the years. I still hang out there on a weekly basis. Last but not least, he coined the term founder brand. He wrote the book, and it's a playbook that I ran in-house to help make my CEO famous. Now, as a consultant, every one of my clients gets a copy. Dave, I'm stoked to have you on the show to chop it up about all things LinkedIn and founder brand. Thanks for being here and welcome.
It's a great intro. Thank you. You caught me taking a note because the marketer in me, anytime I've always kind of like kept a swipe file, and anytime somebody explains the product that I'm doing or working on in a good way, I like to write it down. And so I like what you said about it's like a B2B, it's like LinkedIn for B2B marketers, except nobody's trying to do it for the engagement. And I just added like, or like dunk on you. It's much friendlier. So yeah. I'm going to keep billing you. You're welcome, by the way. I'll keep billing you $10 for life.
Awesome. Is there anything else in your background that you would like to double click on, expand upon?
No, you did a really good job. I can tell you're actually familiar with the story. I think you nailed it. We can talk a lot about this. I actually think there's a alternate path in life where I think I could have gone deeper on the founder brand thing. And I've gone in fits and starts of like, is there a business I should be creating around this? Because there's a lot of momentum here. I've seen lots of people kind of create their own businesses around here. So it's a topic that has been hot, been back on my radar a lot. I kind of wrote the book and then for 2 years kind of just was just whatever, done with it. I wrote the book, I got that out of my system, and it keeps coming back in ways. And I've enjoyed chatting with you in a couple times that we've done in the past. So when you reach out to say, come on the podcast, I'm like, you know what, let's do it. It's always fun to not be host, to get to hang out and sip my tea and go on someone else's podcast and talk about a topic that I know and love. So I'm happy to be here.
That's awesome. We can dive into the book a little bit later, and also maybe some things that didn't make it to the book or you learned after the book was written. But before we get into your LinkedIn journey, I always like to ask our guests, tell us something about yourself that the audience couldn't learn about you from your LinkedIn page or the content that you put out every day, twice a day at that.
Oh, geez. Once a day now. The algorithm is messing with me. Once a day now. I would say I live in Vermont. I have a beautiful wife and 2 children, and that is kind of the majority of my life outside of the computer, outside of the B2B marketing, Dave. My number one priority is my family and my kids. That takes most of my time outside of being on Slack right now. So it's not the coolest fun fact, like I didn't like backpack through Italy for 18 months, when I was 19 years old or anything. I don't really have anything fun like that, but that's my story. I live up here in the B2B marketing mecca of the United States, Burlington, Vermont.
That's pretty funny. Well, and also touching. I'm a family man too. I have 2 kids, and I'm starting to re-engineer my life around that.
Yeah,
More
it's cool.
time
I mean,
with them.
that's also cool is like this, you've been able to create a job and create a business where you can do that, right? You can, both things can be true. You can be a successful entrepreneur and be a good father and husband. So
Some of that in part to you and your book. Let's get into the journey. You started investing in LinkedIn, publishing long form and status posts before anyone was doing it. There were no case studies. Who did you see doing this, and what motivated and inspired you to start doing this?
it wasn't really a person per se. I think a lot of it was shaped by my background in the way that I got into business was working in PR. I worked at a tech PR firm where the companies at the time were like storage companies, security companies. It was like kind of high, deep tech, high tech. It was a company called Lois Paul and Partners in Woburn, Massachusetts. This was in 2009, 2010. Social media was the new thing at the time. And so there was a lot of trainings at the company for clients to like kind of teach them Twitter and LinkedIn and other social networks. And that was kind of like the 2009, 2010 was like, like the Gary V wine library, social media influencer era started to become a thing. And I ended up going from that PR agency where I was literally like writing, I guess I was an OG ghostwriter. Like we were writing tweets. My job as an intern and then eventually a full-time employee was to write tweets for clients. So they would send us over docs and I would write tweets and I would send them back and they would be like, no, you didn't use the right hashtags. And we'd use all these tools like research the right hashtags. So I guess looking back now, that's a thread. And I went to this software company called Constant Contact because I wanted to leave an agency and go to an in-house company, and there was 1,500 people. They're making an email product. They're a publicly traded company. It was really cool because I got to go inside of a company and see all the things. But I worked in PR, and the product that I was responsible for doing the PR around was their social media products. Constant Contact was a email marketing company, and they kind of every company's quest is to become a multi-product company. So they were expanding from email marketing to social media. So my job was literally I was glued to TechCrunch because this was the time of like all of the social media apps and social media agencies and Facebook walls and pages and all the stuff was happening in the era of social media. Constant Contact acquired this company called Nutshell Mail, and they were like a social media aggregator / email company. I got to work directly with the founder of that company to basically help grow his brand, ghostwrite for him, get him speaking appearances, travel, do that stuff together. So I kind of started my career at this like intersection of PR, comms, and social media. I've been on social media doing marketing for, since that time. Fast forward to when I went to Drift, they hired me as the first marketing person there, and they were a little bit early. They weren't pre-product, but they weren't ready to like have the website up and say like, go start a free trial on the website. They were looking to basically get some awareness and build the brand first. And looking at all the ingredients for marketing, I had these 2 well-known founders. I had David Cancel, who's the founder of Drift. He had just come from HubSpot. He was chief product officer at HubSpot. He had, 50,000 followers on Twitter. He was, famous on social media. He was speaking at Harvard Business School. People were clamoring to get him on their podcast. Like he was a big deal. He had his previous company acquired for $30 million by HubSpot. They like transformed the product org at HubSpot. He was a celebrity in the SaaS, B2B SaaS space. So when we were looking at the ingredients to like put this company on the map, it was like so obvious that pre-product, wait, we have this kind of famous founder, but they've done nothing for him. That was the first playbook was his tweets. He would write a tweet and the tweet would go viral and we'd be like, hey, that's a great idea for an article. Let's turn this into an article. Let's turn this into a podcast. And first month working at Drift, he was like, I want to start a podcast and can you help me do it? And so I helped him do it. So basically like the first year of my job was kind of like PRing David And it was a new playbook of PR. It was not write a press release, put the press release up on the wire. We were PRing him through Twitter, through podcasts. And then he was the one that really put me on LinkedIn, because at the time we saw LinkedIn shifting from this like social Rolodex where like, I'd only connect with you, Brad. Like you and I actually met and we shook hands at a meeting. And then after the meeting, that's when I connect with you. He saw it going to become a content platform and people posting there. All of our customers were on LinkedIn. So we started writing on LinkedIn, and we kind of had this inkling of like, let's make LinkedIn, like that should be our social channel. We did it and it worked. So the combination of like social media and podcasts and creating content with him as the focal point of that, as the founder, was the thing that helped Drift grow from, $1 million to $10 million in revenue in a couple years. Obviously there's other things that happened, but that was the thing, like getting him on stage and speaking at stuff. It led to so many opportunities. Did it again on a smaller scale at Privy with Ben, who's the founder there. I kind of wanted to just take a step back after I left those companies. I was like, I want to write a book. There's people who are much worse than I am as a marketer who put books out in the world. I want to put my name on something. I'm a creator. I have a philosophy. I was really thinking about like, what is my philosophy? I just talked to Chris Walker yesterday. Like I'm not the like MQL, waterfall, demand gen, CAC to LTV ratio. I'm more of a creative, a writer, a social media creator. That's the stuff that I love, the PR stuff, the positioning, messaging, narrative, the megaphone. And I was like, that's it. It's building this megaphone. It's using the founder brand, building like this personality for the founder. Like all these founders are crazy in the good way. Same way you and I are crazy for starting our own companies. Like no one starts a company because they're like, oh, I want to wake up and get rich. They have some story, right? And in David's case, it was, he's been building SaaS products for 20 years and they realized this thing was broken. So they're going to build it on a new way doing chat, right? Ben, his parents were, small business owners and entrepreneurs, and he built this, app for Shopify. There's always a story there. So I was like, there is something here and I want to put this into a book. And I wrote it. That was kind of the thing. It just came from my experience. It wasn't necessarily that I saw someone or like, admired Elon Musk. And so I wrote this book about founder brand. It was kind of like I see it more as like the new playbook for PR. And I think that's why it works really well for companies today.
I think you make a great point there that I guess as all this time, there are people that have stories to tell and people inside businesses that use story to compel people to buy something, right? The channels just change over time. LinkedIn became something of a conduit for that message and it worked great. I'm kind of curious, when you and Dave first started transitioning over to LinkedIn, were there challenges, to get the motion going?
No, it was natural. We were good at it from the beginning because he was like a prolific tweeter. So I would see one of his tweets, he would just send off some tweet that's like, you should never hire an MBA. And I was like, whoa. That tweet just goes viral in like the business sphere. I was like, let's expand on that for LinkedIn and let's write a version of it for LinkedIn. So I think I was very fortunate to work with someone who was like a social native. It was not like can't get this guy to say, so we had all the right ingredients. Like he would say things, he had strong opinions, right? He had strong opinions. He had like a tier 1 network of like, Sequoia, MIT, Harvard Business School, HubSpot level folks, right? He knew how to say stuff and he was into, he knew how to say and write catchy things. So there was no roadblock. I think the bigger thing was like, you don't realize that how many people don't like you for that because of that. And I think that, like people just project their things onto you. It's a really funny story. I've never shared this and I'm going to tell you because I think you can appreciate it. I became known as like the LinkedIn guy, like, Dave, like he writes on LinkedIn, like who does that? It's just like, it's insane to think about now. Like it's just a social net. Like imagine being like the TikTok guy, like who makes TikToks? It's like, it just is a social network. It just is what it is, right? I went to a different company and one of the executives at the company basically plagiarized somebody else's LinkedIn post and like posted it completely. And the woman who she plagiarized didn't yell at her. She cold DM'd me and said, this woman plagiarized me and I know it's from you because no one wrote on LinkedIn at this company until you joined. And I've never liked you, Dave Gerhardt. And you told this woman to copy and paste my post. It was like the most insane thing. My wife and I still talk about it today because this person out of nowhere accused me of encouraging someone else to plagiarize someone else's post. Like I was the only one who did this horrible, like I teach people how to write on LinkedIn and you must have brought this toxic element to this company. So the only hard part was like, there's just like some of that stuff early on, but man, we had the wind at our backs. Like there was nobody was posting there. I'd post a video of me like drinking a smoothie, walking to work, like with a marketing tip, and it'd be like 100,000 views. And today I have a video team that makes like a highly edited video clip that costs real money to make, and it's like 6,000 views. So we had a lot of advantages. I think that often happens in the early days of social media. It's like, if you can be early on a channel in marketing, you get a lot of the advantages. The only downside was the negativity that comes from posting on social, but I've learned how to deal with that much better as I've gotten wiser.
All right. You mentioned Dave was a social native. Even as an entrepreneur, he kind of knew how business worked. What do you tell people who are wanting to do this now and their CEO is not that? They're not on Twitter. They don't get it. Maybe they don't have that media coaching to have a strong opinion or a narrative. What is your advice there?
I would say suck it up, Buttercup. Because here's the thing, like, there are so many advantages to it beyond like direct sales. And so like when you work for someone who is a socially native person, like all day he'd be sending me screenshots of like someone DM'd him, some conference organizer DM'd him to invite him to speak at a thing, right? Tier 1 investor reaches out because they want to be in the next round. Key employee reaches out because they want to work at the company. It's not just a sales tool. It's the best like employment brand. Like if you run a business, it is like, you almost have a responsibility to like, you want to grow the company, right? Yeah, of course I want to grow the company. Well, there's a channel today that allows you to connect directly with your customers. Doesn't cost $1, just costs your mind. And you're already using your mind to like push this business forward anyway. And what if I told you that all of the things that it takes to say on this channel, you're already saying them? Like you're writing Slack messages internally, you're writing quarterly updates and memos, you're talking to your employees and your customers, and you're writing, you're thinking. It's just about taking that stuff and translating it into something that is more appropriate for an external audience. Because what's amazing about social media is there are billions of users on all the platforms today. So there are some people that can say my customers aren't there, but I'd say for most people, that's not true. When you start writing about something online, there are every pocket of the internet, man, there are people for you, right? My wife is into pottery. She's become into pottery. Her TikTok and her Instagram feed is all people making pots. Whether you're into pottery or golf or sales technology or PR or HR or AI, there's a pocket of people for you. We'd rather do all the crazy stuff like get on a plane and travel and go to events and hire a PR company and have them spend $20,000 a month to like write these nonsense press releases, when like, if you can be relevant and interesting online, you can build a following of like-minded people in your industry that you can use to basically be a cheat code to, yes, generate sales for your business, but it's the feedback loop. Like you could basically test ideas. In the example I used with David, like we would all the time, he would write a post and that post would blow up and we'd be like, boom, we just found the hook for our next announcement. So then when we go to do an announcement, we've kind of already done message testing. Gary Vee talks about this a lot in his latest book. I forget what it's called, but it's basically like every social post you're putting out there is a way to like generate feedback, whether you have, one follower or a million. So it's this amazing feedback loop that allows you to build an effective content machine. It also improves your employment brand because people want to see, like, I want to know the people I'm going to work with. I want to know the founders. I want to feel like I get to know them. And so there are so many benefits. It's like it's one of the few marketing channels that has like 3 or 4 or 5 benefits. And so do you want that? Like if we gave them the classic like sales training, you get those, I get these emails all the time. Like, Dave, do you care about growing your business in 2025?
Yes.
And also it's like, especially on LinkedIn, it's the best one because you don't have to be good on camera. You don't have to do silly dances for TikTok. It's like literally just using your fingers and typing words and having a strong opinion, which you probably started this company for a reason. You have strong opinions, you have industry perspective, you've been in this industry for 20 years and that led you to solve a company. You have all the ingredients to do it. Do you want to do it? Do you want to create an advantage for yourself? But I also understand that it's not for everybody and not everyone's going to do it. And that's actually why I think you should, because maybe your competitors are not. And there are so few advantages in business. If one of the advantages can be you sharing your perspective and your personality online, like, man, it doesn't get much better than that. Do you want to try to do this? Let's do it.
Well, when you put it that way,
So hard. I mean, you live this, right? You have clients in this space. Like this is what you do, but
no, it's hard some of them are very hard to convince even today, right? So I'm going to take that, 4-minute dialogue right there, and
Yeah.
I will send it to every prospect
But I
who
mean,
books me
it's the
before
same
they
thing
do.
with like podcasting, right? Like
Yeah.
it's also one of those things that like you just got to do it and then you will know. And how many clients do you have? Or I have founder friends who like they don't believe in it. 3 months into it, I'm like, what's the ROI of it? They're not like, oh, the ROI is, 3.7x. They're like, oh, they say things like, oh, dude, I got 2 of my best new employees came in because through LinkedIn
Exactly.
and I met a key partner. And it's like, it just becomes so obvious. It's funny. We had this joke at Drift about our podcast in particular. We would joke because everyone would say, well, how are you going to measure the ROI of our podcast? We had so much of this, like these inbound signals in our face that the whole company became a meme within the company. Fortune 500 customer would come in because they listened to our podcast, which was not even about marketing and software. We would post it in Slack. It would be like one of our enterprise account reps would be like, hey, I just had a meeting with like the CMO at Box and she like loves your guys' podcast. We would take that screenshot, we'd put it in Slack and we'd be like, how are we ever going to measure the ROI of our podcast? It's like, that's because we always want some number. We want it to be in a spreadsheet. And it's like, we just know. I'm sure you feel it with the people that you work with, but it's like, man, if you can just commit to doing this and like, not just half-ass writing, not just taking AI copy and slapping it up on LinkedIn, but if you really want to become a thought leader and have a perspective about your industry and start sharing it online, I promise you that the benefits are going to be all the things that we mentioned.
So true. I want to get into systems and resources, but I do want to, you mentioned that AI, it's like the buzzword bingo, right? You in particular are very public about writing your own content. So, but you've been posting for 7 years. So you have a library of 2,000 to 3,000 posts. You also have, on occasion, AI sponsors who are like, hey, I'll give you this product. Why don't you try it out? Is there a world where you upload all the 2,000 or 3,000 posts, which probably is, I don't know, like hundreds of thousands of words? What do you think about tinkering with putting these ideas up into a Dave GPT?
Yeah, I've done it.
And
I've built I have it with Claude.
Claude, okay.
I did this a couple weeks ago. I went into Shield and I exported. I couldn't, with Shield, you can export all your post history from forever. By the way, this is all kind of new for me. Like I'm very much I'm not an analyzer. I'm not an optimizer. Like I'm not kidding. I just kind of like for 7 years, I just have kind of just been writing on LinkedIn. And the way that I do it is I have post ideas. I try to write once a day in the morning. I have post ideas. I either start my day with writing a post, and if I have an idea, I open up LinkedIn and I just share it. Or I have like a Google Doc or Apple Notes which I just call my LinkedIn backlog, which is like, if I thought of an idea right now, I've already posted for today, so I'm not going to use it. I just put it in there and then I just kind of reference that. Other than that, there's people out there with like crazy LinkedIn systems. I am not that guy. If you knew me in real life, like that's just not my personality. I'm very much like standing in line at Starbucks and just like ripping off a LinkedIn post about like, why traditional PR is dead, then that's who I am. But I do see a lot of potential with like exactly what you said is like, I had that thought the other day, which is like, maybe don't be such a Luddite, dude. And like, you got 7 years of content, like there's got to be some trend. So I exported from Shield, but I could only get a year's worth of posts into Claude. Like that was the max context window. I basically built like a writing guide and I wrote like, here's what a good headline looks like. Here's posts that I like. Here's top performing posts. The posts that it has generated for me, they're good, but they don't. I'm not saying I don't believe in AI. I'm all in. I'm bullish. If I was running your business or if I was ghostwriting, like I would absolutely be using these tools. I have a founder friend of mine that I'm helping out and I have some like Claude kind of like recipes that I've helped him and it creates great content. But I can, this is just what I do. Like I can sit down and I can just rip out a post in a minute. And I don't know if it's better than Claude or ChatGPT, but it just feels right. So I'm using it more as like filler. And so like if I don't have an idea, that fresh kind of idea I will always write it and I might take it to Claude and I might say like, how could I make this better? How could I tweak the hook and headline? I think that's valuable. But I haven't like really just like copied, like I've never actually taken a post that was completely written by AI and copied it and posted it. That just doesn't work for me. I think you could do it as a ghostwriter and you could do it for a CEO. Absolutely. I just am like, this is kind of like what I do and it's natural and it's easy and I enjoy writing it. So I like to do that process.
I've tinkered a little bit, but I think it really only works. You can't copy someone else's stuff and do it. You have to copy your own stuff or feed it like some foundation similar to you. I put in like a year's worth of posts and I'm like, what happens if I put in my old stuff for the style and some knowledge about me? And I ripped a new idea into a voice memo, transcribe that and throw that in there and have it merge the two.
Now, My opinion about that aside, if I was doing marketing inside of a company or if I was running a founder brand type of business, this is exactly what I would be doing, which would be like a couple times a month, interviewing the founder, getting all this, getting the transcripts, using the transcripts to like create some type of style guide using Claude or ChatGPT. Like, let's meet all the time so we get transcripts so I can get fresh content. Send me voice notes, send me all that. Let's take your top posts, let's analyze them. Let's break down what a good post looks like that we like. Let's use it. Let's use Claude as an example and basically build like a writing assistant. So then I can write a prompt and say like, hey, I just got this 20-minute rant about agents and why like the future of the SDR role is going away and I'm a sales tech CEO. I would absolutely be using Claude to help me flesh that out because I feel like one of the things that I struggle with ghostwriting for founders is like I just don't often have there's only a few things that I know a lot about, and ChatGPT and Claude and these AI tools are like an amazing research assistant. So it's like, hey, I want to make the case that like SDRs are going to be replaced by AI. Here's some data points. Can you help me frame that? And it's going to do a much better job of like adding the meat to content. I think as a writing tool, as a writing assistant, it's absolutely a tool that I would be leaning on. I think where the magic still happens though is sprinkling in the true personality. That is what makes founder brand is like, yeah, if everyone just starts pumping out ChatGPT and Claude generated like content, it's going to suck. But if you can find a way to maybe use that to help you get going, but how do we make that Brad? You know, Brad's got a yellow beanie on, like a funky button up shirt. He's got a fish mug, a fish poster. That has to be injected into your content. That is what makes it good. I actually think there's going to be a new wave because of all this AI stuff that like made by a human is going to be a thing. It's why I kind of been messing around in my post. I'm saying like, yes, this post was actually written. This is an old copywriting technique. I've used this for years that I learned where like it's a way of doing personalization without doing like, insert token name. It's like, hey, yes, I wrote this email from a flight. I'm currently 37,000 feet up in the sky on a JetBlue flight from Boston to Orlando. I don't ever drink soda, but why is it that a Diet Coke tastes so good on in the airplane, right? Like sprinkling in little nuggets like that. I think you've got to be able to do that to have a brand and have an identity. So that stuff is really important. That stuff's not going to go away.
Yeah, that's really interesting. To be honest, I feel like this is an area that's like the true Wild West. Everyone's experimenting. Let's get back to reality. What is your system to manage your presence? And you're doing it yourself. So
yeah, 100%. 100% me. So I write once a day. Usually I did twice a day for a little bit, but it just, the afternoon post just didn't work. So I have found that the best time to post is like 6 to 8 a.m. in the morning, 6 to 9 a.m. in the morning. It's usually, I just treat it like to the point about like a founder, like how do you make time for this? I've just like, it has helped my career and my business so much that it's like quite literally the first thing that I do every day. You can check your inbox every day. You can check Slack every day. Like I open LinkedIn. And so lately my routine has been, I try to wake up a little bit before my kids so I can have some time to myself. I build a fire. I'm sit there, have the fire. I do some stretches. I have a drink of water. I have my coffee and I open up my calendar. And I stopped using the LinkedIn native scheduler. I stopped using any scheduling tools because I found that they don't, for some reason, the engagement isn't the same. I don't know if that's a placebo or not. So I use my scheduler, which is my calendar. So every day in my calendar, I have a post. Like today, we have this salaries report that we published. So on my calendar at 5:45 a.m. this morning, it says LinkedIn, post about salaries report. I have the link to Slack where we have the content about it. And I have a Google Doc. And I opened up Slack, and that was the thing that I needed to post today. And so I try to plan out my content for the week. If I don't have a calendar reminder on there, it means that day is just open for me to write about whatever's on my mind. I try to organize my content in that, like, I found that, and I'm working with a founder who does this, like, you have a great idea and you want to just go to LinkedIn and post it right now. But as you know, it's like the patience is your friend. You need to like understand what the algorithm wants as far as timing. And so you have that hot idea now, but you already posted today. Hit pause, put it on your calendar and publish it tomorrow, right? So I try to post every day during the week, and sometimes I'll write something on Saturday or Sunday, but it's not scheduled. Then I kind of mix it up. So we do some sponsored stuff with Exit 5. So we have like 8 to 10 sponsors, and as part of their sponsored package, like we do a sponsored post for them where like we have a video clip, but that's once or twice a month. And I have some stuff that I have to promote, like our newsletter, or we have a webinar. Other than that, I try to have a mix of like 1 out of every 5 posts is like an exit 5 promo related thing. And then the other 4 are usually about my life or about marketing. Then I have a backlog. So I just have right now, I have an Apple Notes file that is just backlog ideas. I might not even get to them because if I look at my calendar right now, I have basically content on the calendar through mid-January. Every couple of weeks, I'll go into Shield or I'll go into LinkedIn Analytics. You can just do this and you can look at top performing posts. This is a hugely underrated thing. The LinkedIn feed is so ephemeral, like all social media channels, right? Which it just goes away. And I have 175,000 followers, but like on average, my posts probably get between 10 and 30,000 impressions. So it's a massive portion of my followers who never see my posts. Never have I reposted a post and someone's been like, dude, you posted this 6 months ago. No, it works again. And so I try to go through and like replay the hits. So I'll look at top posts and I'll just take them again. So I have stuff like, I actually have a post next week that's about like why I think LinkedIn is a great PR strategy for startups. I've kind of posted that like 3 times a year for the last 4 years. Every time I posted it, it goes nuts. So I think there's an element to that I also sprinkle in, but that's pretty much it. I have an advantage though, which is I have a very clear niche, B2B marketing. I have a large audience in this niche. So we have a community, we have a newsletter, like I'm flooded with insights and I have my finger on the pulse of like what the audience of readers wants. And so I feel like I know what will land with people. And I think that is kind of like the secret sauce and the special ingredient. And on top of that, it's in an industry I've been working in for over a decade, right? So I think those are the factors.
There are major knowledge bombs in there. Just try to tease some of them out for people who are listening. So maybe I'll work backwards. Niche down, know your audience, and write to that. Time box, kind of like working out, right? It's not going to happen unless you do it. And sure, you can have like someone on the team work with you and help you be accountable. But just putting the time on your calendar and doing it, that's the only way it happens.
There's people though, I see them out there. You could read somebody on LinkedIn and they're like, here's my 15-step process for generating a LinkedIn post. And it's just like, no, I've been just doing it for a long time. So I can just sit there and like pull open LinkedIn and just like rip off a post. And I think it's just like anything in marketing. It's very easy to over engineer it when like the 80-20 of this is like, what do you have something interesting to say? It's not about how you automated it, which post you scheduled, what time of day you posted, like what the headline was, what the third line of the copy was. That's not what matters. It is like, do you have something to say? And then there's lots of things I want to write about. I want to write about my life, fitness, sports, politics, climate change, whatever, right? I want to write about all that on LinkedIn, but that doesn't work to grow a following. It's strategically it's advantageous for me to build a following like of marketers because we're building a business in this space. So that's the audience that I want. If you want to build a following, which that's the goal, it's not a vanity metric because if more people follow you, more people are going to see your message. If more people see your message, more people are going to go to your website, buy your product, see your stuff. It's just like having people opt into your email list. You have a bigger audience, right? I found that when there was a time in my life when I was writing on LinkedIn, I was kind of writing about everything. I wasn't growing. My engagement wasn't growing. Now you know that when you see a post from me, it's most likely going to be about marketing. That's what you want to be. What is the topic that it's valuable for you to be known about? Whether what's the woman you used to work with, Kate?
Yes.
Right? What was her thing? E-commerce, like, omni-channel marketing, right? Like you need something like that. Adam Robinson, like when I see him in my feed, I know what he's going to talk about. You can't, it's not build a founder brand and like tell everybody about how you went to yoga and you like to eat this and you like sprinkle that in as like the little dust to make things more interesting. But you got to be like, what is it? What's the topic I want to be known for? And that's what I'm going to create content around. And like my friends and family know that I have more substance in real life than just the B2B marketing guy. But for the sake of building an audience on LinkedIn, I'm the B2B marketing guy and it worked.
Yeah. Like a product, you need to position yourself and build a story around it. So it makes perfect sense. One idea, actually, I think I just want to pull out that was in that, barrage of tips, all amazing. The swipe file, I think, is critical. A lot of my clients kind of run in the beginning. It's really easy. The ideas really flow because they have a lot kind of piled up. But eventually, if you're not kind of reflecting, you hit the wall.
Yeah, you got to stockpile.
Yeah.
It's like maybe it's like a.
You got to write from abundance.
Well, it's like we have a fireplace, right? And you got to have the wood stocked for all winter long. So you got to have the reserve pile out back. And so there's the days that the inspiration strikes and I don't need a backlog, but it's important to post consistently. If I roll to Monday and I'm like, damn, I'm depressed today. I'm in a bad mood. My kids piss me off. I got to do this nonsense meeting for work. I got nothing to write about. Oh, no, I have a Google Doc filled with 500 post ideas. Great. I got one. I'll copy it, I'll edit it. Like that is a huge thing, especially if you're trying to coach a founder or yourself to like, how do you build this muscle? You need the stockpile. It's very hard to do it on demand. You got to build that stockpile of ideas, and you got to switch your brain on to know like all day, what are the activities that could be LinkedIn posts? Like I just wrote this like long rant to the team about what's changing with SEO and chat GPT. And I'm like, oh, that'd be a great LinkedIn post. So I copy that and I kind of edit it and I tweak it. About 2 hours ago, I did a chat with a marketing team for like an internal marketing meeting. I was like a guest speaker and they sent me over 20 questions yesterday. And I wrote out my answers to those 20 questions. I have that Google Doc and it's literally a to-do item for me next week that I'm going to chunk them out and I'm going to make LinkedIn posts because I've already done the work. So my brain is just now kind of always like, what could be content for LinkedIn from this? I think that's a great thing that you can steal.
Always got to have ideas. I want to switch gears a little bit. I feel like we got into a lot of things that were uncovered in the book. Fantastic, really. But I want to talk about impact. To be honest, a lot of the impact we kind of covered almost in the intro, business-wise. I'm kind of curious more of the unexpected impact of all this work that you've done. Most people do this for business purposes, drive awareness, drive revenue, and whatever opportunity that comes with that. What else has happened to you as a result? Maybe back at Drift or some of the other companies you worked at, unexpected benefits or just crazy stories that happen when you happen to be all over LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a billionaire, in case you didn't know. I drive a RAV4. Bet you can't afford that. No, you know what? I like to joke around, so apologies. But one thing has been like, people like to say like, oh, it's just marketing. It's just B2B marketing. But man, I could fill a whole wall with people who have been like, hey man, that thing that you wrote, like you helped me get a job. You helped me get promoted. You helped me do this at work. Like humans, we put a lot of stock in what we do for our jobs. You go to a party, you meet somebody. What's the very first thing they ask you? Oh, hey, Brad, I'm Dave. Nice to meet you. What do they say after you get to kind of shooting the shit? What's the very first question they ask you?
So what do you do?
Right? I didn't make us that way. I don't know why we are that way. It just is. So what do you do? So whether you work in sales or marketing or finance or you're a teacher, we put a lot of like our identity becomes, like what we do for work. And so, yeah, it is just me writing like posts on LinkedIn, but I have so many messages from people over the years who have like, man, I love your stuff. Or I had somebody message me the other day and I wrote something about, this was about like working out and family and stuff. But I think this makes the point. This guy messaged me. He's like, hey man, I've been in a rut. I've been kind of depressed. I haven't worked out in like a year and a half. I got 2 kids. I'm very similar position to you. I just read your posts and I'm like, I'm stopping this bullshit tomorrow. I'm going to start running again. I'm going to start. How would you start? And I had long back and forth with this guy. I'm like, just run 5 minutes. You can do 5 minutes. If you do 5 minutes, you can do 7. If you do 7 minutes, you can do a mile. Then run a mile every day. That's what I did. I started running every day. December 2022, I ran 1 mile a day. We had this amazing exchange, like human to human. That was an amazing thing. That happened. We didn't talk about marketing, but that happened because of marketing. Like, because we like friends. It's like, I don't know you, but I bet we'd hang out in real life and be able to shoot the shit and have a nice time because our work lives are very similar. So like, it's just like, why are you friends with people at work? It's like a therapy and camaraderie. Like we have the same job. Nobody else in my life cares about B2B marketing, but we all work in the same world. So it's been those personal stories. And I think that to make the point for like, what's possible, this is beyond, LinkedIn famous or beyond the value of a founder getting on LinkedIn. Social media is, for all of the nonsense and the dunking and the bots and the politics and all that crap, it's an amazing way to connect with people. Like it's given me such an advantage in my career. The people that I've been able to connect with from across the world, around the world, literally because I write about marketing on LinkedIn. Like, are you kidding me? That is amazing. I've met so many people. I met Exit 5 members. There's one Exit 5 member. She sent me a Christmas card, like a holiday card. It's hanging on my fridge, like with a nice personal note because we met through LinkedIn. They came to our event. She's grown her career through this thing. It's like, so whenever I'm having a day where someone's like, oh, cool, bro, another LinkedIn tech bro writing about marketing online. I'm like, yeah, but you should see the other side of this. There is a real human piece of this and it's pretty damn cool. So that's like the one thing that I'm most proud of. One more, this used to happen a lot more when I lived in Boston, but I lived in Boston and Drift was in Boston and there was a lot of tension in like the tech space on us. So I was literally, he like recognized. It was like the most embarrassing thing. Like I'm in Whole Foods and it's some guy come up to me. He's like, yo, Dave Gerhardt, right? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh man, I follow you on LinkedIn. And I'm buying groceries with my wife on this Sunday. But This was I'm up in Vermont now, and we had an event at this event space up here called Hula. And my kids weren't old enough or even alive when we were in Boston, and that stuff happened. I'm in Hula in Burlington, Vermont. I took my kids there because I had to pick them up from school and I need to go visit this venue. So I brought them with me, and I walk in the door at Hula. It's a co-working space in Vermont. This lady comes up to me. She's like, Dave Gerhardt? She's like, you're up in Vermont? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh, I'm Becky so-and-so. I'm head of marketing at this startup. I'm like, wait, you know me? And my kids saw that. It was the coolest thing ever. It was like, my daughter's 7 and my son is 5, and they don't know what I do, but that some stranger like recognized me and knew my name. My kids, like my daughter still talks about that. It was the cutest, like coolest thing ever. And I was like, all right, this is beyond just like, writing on LinkedIn. So that was pretty cool.
That is awesome. When worlds collide. So we're nearing the end of our amazing conversation here. I have just a couple more questions for you. The first I want to ask is, you mentioned when you started LinkedIn that it was the gold rush. You posted about drinking your smoothie, walking down the block, 100,000 views. What do you say to a founder who wants to get started now? Do you think there's still gold in them there hills?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I see it every day. I think you'll see a post in your feed. I think it's social media. Maybe you don't have the early mover advantage anymore, but this is kind of the opportunity that you get from social media where it just takes one post to kind of pop off or go viral, whatever that means in your world. Because unlike having an email list, for example, where you have 100 people on your email list, kind of the max of the reach of that is going to be 100. You could write the one post that just like gets sucked in by the feed. This guy, Ding, he goes by the sales rapper. You know
Sales
Ding,
rapper.
right? Okay.
Yes, of course.
So he texted me the other day, and we share a love of like music, particularly hip hop rap. And he sends me, and there's this like Dr. Dre song, and it's like ding, ding, dong, ding, 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 dong. Keep the bells ringing, ding. And so I sent him that, and I was like, dude, you got to rap over this. And he did, and he rapped over it, and he made it. He sends it to me the next day or 2 days later. The post had like 70 likes on it, but it had 350,000 impressions. Okay. So the way that I read that is like vertical video. They have that video tab now. It got sucked into that, that feed, and it went nuts. So he doesn't have a big following. He was not an early mover, but it just took that one post to get him like thousands of new followers and like that snowball effect. So I think that's one. The other thing is like, don't do it for that reason. Do it for the like, I'm going to commit to doing this. Like, I don't want you to treat it as like short-term results. I want you to treat this like a habit. Like, I'm going to work out and run and lift and do that for the rest of my life. I'm not doing it just for sick. Like, there's some people who I'm going on vacation in 3 months and I want to look decent in vacation, so I'm going to go work out now. No, do it for the rest of your life, because it's like an amazing business channel beyond the followers, beyond the metrics. It's an amazing opportunity to like network, to meet other people, to test messages. So I wouldn't do it for the followers and the virality. I would do it as like messaging is the most important thing for your business. This is a channel to like constantly be testing and tweaking your messaging. So it's an amazing feedback tool. I would do it even if there was no followers that came with it.
I love that. I also think about it as like almost like a journal and a legacy to kind of help you think about, work things out in your head.
Yes,
and,
it's
and
amazing.
even, when I'm gone, my kids could probably go look at it and know the story
Oh,
of my
God.
work life.
Somebody export dad's LinkedIn profiles. No, but you said it. It's also, yeah, like who cares? Like I would be doing it as a daily, like it helps me clarify my thoughts on stuff. So if nobody followed me, if I had no engagement, I promise you that I would still do the same writing, because it's like, it's a daily practice of like having to write a hook, having to write a headline, having to write something, having to have something to say, I think is very valuable.
That's awesome. You inspire people every day. One of my last questions, or second to last, who inspires you on LinkedIn? Who are you following? Who are you learning from on LinkedIn these days? I assume you're not spending much time on Twitter anymore.
Twitter, man, I don't know what to make of Twitter. I want it to be, I am, it's like where I get my news, but it's like, it's also the worst. It's like,
I gave up on it.
you gave up on it? You gave up on it?
Yeah. Too much noise.
Yeah. But it's weird though. I get DMs, like I do connect with people and like I'll get DMs from people and for like calls and interesting things. I don't know. You want me to recommend somebody on LinkedIn that you should go follow or something?
If you're not learning from anybody, who do you just think is crushing it? A good example, for other folks out there who want to do some founder brand, and learn and get inspired.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I got you. I'll give you a couple. There's a guy called Eli Rubel. He runs a design and creative agency, and he's been posting a lot on LinkedIn, just like kind of sharing his story and sharing his journey. He's a good person to follow. I don't know if you follow Alina Vandenberg. She's the founder of Chili
indeed.
Piper. She's a great example.
She's going to come on the podcast soon.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
All right, great. Tell her I said hello. You know what? I actually made a list a while ago because people asked me this question, and I should know who it is. You know what I'm trying to do more? I'm trying to comment more. I think commenting is a very underrated way to like curate your feed. There's a girl called Christina Lee. She runs marketing at a company called Plot. They're like a social media company. She's great. Devin Reed is a good guy to follow. He just recently quit his job and he's kind of going all in on this. And then from a content standpoint, I've been following Kip and Kieran. So Kip is a CMO at HubSpot, and they have this podcast called Marketing Against the Grain. And that's where I've been getting a lot of my AI knowledge from. And there's a lot, they talk a lot about like AI and writing and what's possible over there that I think is really good. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have that much interesting stuff. I had a period in my life where all I did was read like business books. And now I read fiction. It's made me a better writer.
That's cool. I need to do more of that.
I love reading. I love reading at night and in bed on my Kindle. I found that like if I'm laying in bed reading like, founder brand, my brain just starts spinning. And so I need something else. But I think ultimately I'm just a curious person. So I see everything as marketing. My wife will be like, check this out. Because we bought this couch, we got a free table with it. And I'm like, no. That's marketing. That's just marketing.
Oh man, it's been amazing chopping it up with you. To wrap things up, is there anything interesting going on at Exit 5 that you'd like to share with everybody out there?
Everything, yeah. Interesting. We've got a real business. We've got a real company. It was a one person a year ago. We're about to make an offer to our sixth person to join the team. It's not going anywhere. This is what I kind of fell into, and we've built an amazing company, an amazing business, and I'm having a lot of fun. Like I feel like I was letting my muscles atrophy in like what should be the prime of my career by kind of like toiling away, being like, I'm a solopreneur forever. This is the only way I can live. We have an amazing community, and I'm having a lot of fun building like this media company. I feel myself getting better from that. So you can check out Exit 5 or just follow me on LinkedIn and you'll see all my nonsense about it and you won't miss it.
Yes, everybody go follow Dave on LinkedIn. All of you who are living under a rock, I don't know who Dave Gerhardt is. Dave, it was so great having you on. Thank you for being generous with your time and perspective. Until next time, let's stay connected on LinkedIn.
All right. I'll wear my LinkedIn famous hat and send you a picture when I get it.
If you enjoyed this episode, follow Brad and Spectimer on LinkedIn for hot takes and tactical executive branding advice. For the readers in the audience, subscribe to LinkedIn Famous on Substack. And if you really loved this episode, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting platform of your choice. Until next time, stay bold, authentic, and keep on creating.